Have you ever wondered if success is a beautiful lie we tell ourselves, while failure sits close to your bones, feeling more like home than any achievement ever has? In the next few minutes, you'll discover why that feeling of inadequacy persists regardless of external validation, and how to transform this shadow into something powerful. Comment below with the moment you first felt like an imposter in your own life. Type, "I remember when," and finish the sentence. Your story matters here. We live in a culture that worships the monument of success while hiding the scaffolding that built it. The smiling faces of accomplishment that never reveal their trembling hands. Behind closed doors, even the most successful among us scroll through their achievements with a strange emptiness, as if scanning a stranger's resume, wondering when the real owner will claim it. You feel like a failure not because you've failed, but because you've succeeded at the wrong game. You've been measuring yourself against a standard that was never yours to begin with. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this peculiar modern affliction. He called it the spirit of gravity, that heavy voice whispering you are never enough, never worthy, always lacking. Become who you are, he challenged. Not who your parents wished for, not what social media celebrates, not what your insecurities defend against, but who you authentically are beneath the performance. This feeling of fraudulence comes not from lacking talent or effort, but from the unbearable weight of living someone else's definition of success, from borrowing values that were never truly yours. The greatest failure is not in falling short of excellence, but in perfectly achieving goals that never belonged to your soul. Perfect execution of a foreign script. Consider how we construct our identities. Like architects designing buildings they themselves would never live in. Impressive from the outside, hollow on the inside. We hang our self-worth on the unstable hooks of external validation. Each compliment temporarily patches the hole, only for the doubt to seep back through the cracks. The metrics of success keep shifting like desert sands. You reach one summit only to discover another peak hidden in the clouds, the horizon of accomplishment eternally receding. When you feel like a failure despite evidence to the contrary, you're experiencing what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the gap between your self-image and your achievements. This gap isn't something to eliminate. It's something to explore. The discomfort is not the enemy but the teacher, revealing where your authentic self diverges from your constructed identity. What if this persistent feeling of inadequacy isn't a flaw but a compass? A soul-level indication that you're orbiting someone else's sun rather than igniting your own light. In the shadows of your perceived failure lives a profound opportunity to question not just your performance, but the very stage you've been performing on. The mirror of failure reflects not your inadequacy, but your misdirection. Not weakness, but wisdom trying to redirect you toward authentic purpose. A necessary disorientation. Throughout history, our greatest thinkers experience profound failure before their breakthroughs. Their greatest contributions emerged not despite their failures, but directly because of them. Einstein worked as a patent clerk, rejected by academia. Van Gogh sold only one painting in his lifetime. Their failures were simply the world not yet ready for their vision. Your feeling of failure might be the first honest thing you've felt in years. The first crack in the perfect facade. The beginning of authenticity breaking through. When we follow Nietzsche's invitation to create our own values, we must first pass through the desert of uncertainty. The barren landscape where old identities die and new ones have yet to form. In this desert, you will feel like a failure. You will question everything. This is not regression but metamorphosis. The caterpillar must dissolve before the butterfly emerges. The first transformation begins with questioning achievement itself. What if the obsession with measurable success is merely society's way of making us legible, categorizable, manageable? Success, as we know it, is often just the visible tip of a hidden iceberg. The parts that show above water, status, wealth, recognition, masking the deeper substance of a meaningful life. When we chase only what shows above the surface, we become top-heavy, unstable. We develop a profound inner emptiness that no external achievement can fill. This emptiness isn't failure. It's your authenticity calling you home. The voice of your deeper self refusing to be silenced by trophies and accolades that mean nothing to your soul. If you subscribe to a definition of success that requires constant validation, you've entered an unwinnable game. The scoreboard always resets. The finish line always moves. Instead, consider what the ancient Stoics understood, that true achievement lies not in collecting victories, but in developing character. Not in being admired, but in being authentic. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote private journals reminding himself of his own mortality and insignificance. At the height of worldly power, he practiced the discipline of humility. This isn't pessimism but liberation. When you release the crushing weight of projected perfection, you find yourself suddenly light, mobile, free to pursue what genuinely matters to you. The second transformation requires examining your relationship with competence. We've been taught that mastery means flawless execution, when true mastery includes embracing necessary failure. Every master fails more frequently than the novice. The difference is not in the absence of failure, but in their relationship to it. They fail purposefully, strategically, instructively. The concert pianist practices the difficult passage hundreds of times. The scientist runs experiment after failed experiment. Their greatness lies not in avoiding failure, but in its deliberate cultivation. What if you've been measuring failure incorrectly? What if those moments of inadequacy were actually growth in disguise? What if the feeling of failure is the sensation of expansion? Your discomfort with imperfection doesn't stem from actual inadequacy, but from unreasonable standards. Standards you would never impose on someone you truly loved. Speak to yourself as you would to a dear friend sharing their doubts and fears. With compassion, with perspective, with a wisdom that sees beyond momentary struggle to enduring strength. If this resonates with you, join this community of seekers. Subscribe to continue exploring the deeper waters of what it means to live authentically in a world obsessed with appearances. The third transformation involves recognizing how failure connects rather than isolates us. Your struggles don't separate you from humanity, they bind you to our collective experience. When you share your failures, something magical happens. The masks fall away. Genuine connection replaces performative interaction. Your vulnerability becomes an invitation for authenticity. The failure you hide becomes the wall between you and others. The failure you acknowledge becomes the bridge. Your openness creates space for others to breathe, to be real, to belong. Consider how your relationship with failure shapes every relationship in your life. Those who cannot bear imperfection in themselves cannot tolerate it in others. The perfectionist becomes the harsh judge, the demanding partner, the controlling parent, the impossible boss. Their fear of inadequacy casts long shadows over everyone in their orbit. But those who have made peace with their limitations become generous witnesses to the humanity of others. They create spaces where people can show up whole, flawed, and beautiful. Nietzsche spoke of amor fati, the love of fate, including all its difficulties. Not just accepting but embracing the full spectrum of experience, including the painful parts we label as failure. This isn't resignation, but radical acceptance. The recognition that our wounds and weaknesses are not obstacles to our purpose, but essential components of it. Not despite, but because. Your specific constellation of strengths and limitations creates a unique perspective no one else possesses. Your particular failures give you insight, empathy, and wisdom unavailable to others. The fourth transformation requires reconsidering time itself. Failure is often simply success that hasn't happened yet. The unfinished story mistaken for the complete narrative. History repeatedly shows us that what appears as failure in the moment often reveals itself as necessary preparation in retrospect. The detour that wasn't a detour at all. Thomas Edison made thousands of unsuccessful attempts at the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he famously responded, "I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This perspective transforms failure from endpoint to data point. Not the period at the end of a sentence, but the comma that leads to the next phrase. Your current struggles are not the conclusion of your story. They are the complicated, necessary middle, the part that makes the ending meaningful, earned, and true. We love stories of transformation precisely because they honor the difficult middle. The hero's journey requires the dark night of the soul before the triumphant return. You're not meant to skip the challenging chapters of your life. They contain lessons unavailable elsewhere. Wisdom that cannot be borrowed, inherited, or purchased, only earned. When you feel like a failure, you're standing at the threshold of profound growth. Not because failure itself is valuable, but because your response to it determines everything. Will you use this moment to retreat into smaller versions of yourself? Or will you allow it to crack open your previous limitations and expand into something more authentic? The final transformation involves recognizing that your sense of failure might be your highest achievement, the moment your soul refused to be placated by hollow success. When nothing external satisfies, when achievements feel empty, when recognition leaves you cold, that's not failure. That's integrity demanding alignment between your outer life and inner truth. This painful awakening is what the mystics called the dark night of the soul, when old certainties crumble and new understanding has yet to dawn. In these moments, you stand in the fire of transformation. Not comfortable, not pleasant, but necessary. The phoenix cannot rise without the flames that reduce the old self to ashes. So when you feel like a failure, pause. Listen to what that feeling is trying to tell you. Not about your worth, but about your path. Not about your abilities, but about your direction. Ask yourself, what if this isn't failure at all, but redirection? What if my soul knows something my ego doesn't yet understand? What if this discomfort is pointing me home? Your greatest contribution will likely emerge from your deepest wounds. Your unique offering born from what you once considered your most shameful inadequacies. The places where you feel broken are precisely where the light gets in, where rigid perfection cracks to reveal something far more valuable, your humanity, your authenticity, your truth. Remember this, you cannot fail at being yourself. You can only fail at being who you think you should be. And perhaps that's not failure at all, but liberation. In the words of Nietzsche, the snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. Your feeling of failure might be the shedding of an old skin. Not death, but rebirth. Not loss, but evolution. The necessary pain of becoming more fully yourself. This is the invitation hidden within your feelings of inadequacy, to create your own definition of a life well lived. To measure yourself against no standard, but the one your deepest self recognizes as true. You are not failing. You are becoming. And becoming is never finished, never perfect, never complete. It is alive, in motion, in process, just as you are. The next time that feeling of failure washes over you, don't run from it. Step into it. Listen to it. Ask what truth it carries, what wisdom it offers, what direction it suggests. Your relationship with failure doesn't just determine your achievements, it shapes your character, your compassion, your capacity for joy. It defines not just what you do, but who you become. Perhaps the greatest success isn't avoiding failure, but transforming your relationship with it. Not eliminating imperfection, but making it the very material from which you craft a meaningful life.